For years, the biggest sporting event on the planet has been dominated by the same heavyweights: France, Brazil, Argentina, you know the rest. With the 2022 tournament being one of the best ever, having the first African team, Morocco, make the semifinals, credit to Luis Suarez for this not happening a decade earlier, you realize that the traditional giants aren't untouchable anymore. Stick around to the end and learn why the next World Cup champion may not be who you expect. 21 out of the 22 World Cup finals has had at least one of these 5 teams playing: France, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, or Germany. These teams were seen as untouchable giants in the past, but now some of them struggle against the rising competition. Countries that maybe had just a single player in a top 5 league 20 years ago, now have 6 players in those top 5 leagues. And the teams that had 6 players then can now field an entire 11 of players that play on top flight teams. The smaller, lesser known countries are producing elite players at a rate that they haven't before, thus slowly catching up to the big countries in terms of talent. You can definitely see the progress over time, and you can also see it at the club level as well. The team that just won the English Premier League isn't even starting a single English player in their lineup right now. That's just a sign of how global the game is really getting. And with that, there's going to be so much more parity. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, there really aren't going to be any easy groups in the World Cup or any easy teams to play against. Not saying that there won't still be heavyweights, but they won't be as lopsided as a favorite as they have been in years past. Speaking of globalization, there are many examples of it in just the recent tournaments. If we go back to 2018, one of the teams that was in the finals had never been there before in Croatia. But something like that doesn't just happen randomly. Since childhood, kids are developed in the culture of the sport. Unlike in a country like the United States where most kids never grew up wanting to win the World Cup, it's drastically different in Croatia. But success isn't guaranteed. A country like Belgium, with over 3 times the population of Croatia, and has had more talent than Croatia at certain points, had a golden age as well, with great players such as Lukaku, De Bruyne, and Hazard, but never reached the World Cup final heights that Croatia has. In fact, as of 2025, Belgium is the only national team in world history to top the FIFA ranking without having won a World Cup or an international trophy. Proving that talent isn't all that it takes, but chemistry is arguably more important and essential as well. And you can see that within the favorites too. Most people wouldn't say that Argentina is the most talented team name by name. Of course they have great players, but the rest of their roster isn't full of superstar players. Countries like France, and especially England, are much more talented player by player than Argentina. But in a team sport, it doesn't matter. Because if you guys can't play as a team, lose your egos, and work together for the sake of winning, it won't matter how much talent you have, because the talent can only take you so far. An example of this was in the 2022 World Cup. You remember how this group, but more importantly how Japan, beat 2 soccer powerhouses in Germany and Spain to top the group. The latter by setting an all-time tournament record with only 18% possession in a win. But the most iconic moment, for about 3 beautiful minutes, Japan and Costa Rica topped the group. While we just talked about some less talented teams coming up, what's even more prevalent is historically talented teams coming down in quality. While historically dominant in World Cups, recently Brazil hasn't been very competitive. Throughout their entire history, they have never played more than 3 consecutive tournaments without a top 3 finish, until recently. They are currently 5 tournaments in a row without a top 3 finish, and might extend that to 6 tournaments with their lack of dominance in qualifiers, posting embarrassing results against teams like 43rd ranked Paraguay and 46th ranked Venezuela. An even worse example of a team somewhat falling off is a country like Italy. Yes, they have won the 2020 Euros, but since winning the World Cup in 2006, they ended up 26th in 2010, 22nd in 2014, and completely missed out on qualifying for the last 2 World Cups in 2018 and 2022. Meaning that from 2014 to 2025, over a decade of footballing talent never got a chance to actually represent Italy on the biggest stage. And with players like Donnarumma, Barella, and Bastoni, it's possible they could have won something with that type of young talent mixed in with their older veterans, especially if they were good enough to win the Euros at the time. But we will never know because they never even qualified. Then some older players like Insigne and Immobile, who were on the end of the 2014 World Cup roster but never got any serious playing time in that tournament, are now too old to even be on the current team anymore. This fading dominance is easily visible when looking at all-time goal scorers for each nation. Every single team that has won a World Cup has a top 10 national goal scorer that has played in the 2010s or later. Here's Argentina, Germany, Spain, France, Brazil, Uruguay, and England, except for Italy, who doesn't have a single top 10 goal scorer who played after 2010, showing how bad they have been in the modern era. And let's not forget, they had one of the most embarrassing losses against North Macedonia to miss out on the 2022 World Cup. Back in the day, Italy would get in by quote-unquote default, but now are struggling to get in as a result of the rest of the competition keeping them at bay. And it's fun to see. Name 3 players from Northern Macedonia. You can't. But the fact that Italy was bad enough and they were competitive enough to knock out a multi-time champion in Italy shows the globalization within the game. But now, the sport is getting to a point where you actually have to lock in and respect these other countries, or you will drop points or get eliminated from competition. Like when Russia in 2018, the lowest ranked team in the World Cup, knocked out Spain in the round of 16. The small teams have to be taken seriously, and I think in the upcoming tournament it's going to get to a point where these teams, they won't even be considered small, but they will be extremely competitive. Right now there still are some easy games, but eventually the World Cup is going to be the type of tournament where there really are no easy games because every single team is decent. One reason why the skill gap feels smaller is the unpredictability of the World Cup. Upsets are inevitable, and arguably no tournament is better at showing this than the World Cup. In the most recent World Cup, even the eventual champions Argentina weren't immune to an upset. Not against a mid-rated team, but against Saudi Arabia, the second lowest ranked team in the entire tournament. Later on in the tournament, Japan beat Spain and Germany, and Morocco knocked out Portugal. But upsets aren't a recent phenomenon at all, and they aren't flukes either. They are a pattern. You can go back to every single World Cup and find major upsets. In 2018, South Korea beat the defending champions Germany. In 2014, Costa Rica beat Italy. And in 2010, South Africa beat France, Switzerland beat Spain, and Slovakia beat Italy. These smaller teams come with better chemistry, less ego, and quality tactics. Plus, the benefit of not having any pressure on them at all. With the World Cup being a one-game elimination, years of preparation and team building can all be erased on just one bad night. Arguably the most important factor, I think, is the expansion from 32 teams to 48 teams, making the tournament 50% bigger than before. With this, there's going to be a round of 32 knockout stage, but more significantly, an increase from 64 games to 104 games, and the teams that reach the semifinal will have played 8 games instead of the usual 7. This extra game is an increased chance of getting knocked out or having a player injured, which could affect you in future games as well. But with all this, that doesn't mean I think teams like Brazil or Italy are ever actually going to be bad. Just because of the soccer culture and stable economy that these countries have, it would be extremely hard for them to actually become a bottom feeder in soccer. What I'm really trying to say is that the currently bad, smaller countries will start to be good, and then start to level the playing field. Now for my predictions. Personally, I think within the next 2 World Cups, the Netherlands will win one, and they are very much overdue for a World Cup win with year after year of tough losses. But some other countries that might have a chance for their first trophy are Portugal, Belgium, Colombia, Senegal, and of course Croatia and Morocco. Later on down the line, the US and Mexico have the potential to reach that tier of competitiveness as well. This is Gade Films. Like, comment, subscribe, and stay fantastic.